Third time's the charm, as they always say. After losing to Michigan in the playoffs twice in this series, seasons 1 and 3, we're going to get another crack at the Wolverines today. Along with that, we're headed to Duke, facing off against the Blue Devils in a battle of the basketball Blue Bloods. We'll start with the Duke matchup here in Week 2, and then we're headed to Michigan for Week 3, and a couple of fun non-conference road games that should really tell us where this team is at going into Big 12 play. Currently, we are ranked number 4, with a lot of chaos and movement in the rankings after a thrilling Week 1. 5 teams ahead of us in the polls lost, including the reigning champion, number 1 Notre Dame Fighting Irish, along with Miami, Clemson, Oregon, and of course Michigan, who dropped a game to Buffalo, catapulting our Kansas Jayhawks all the way from number 9 to number 4. It also certainly didn't hurt that we put up 62 points on James Madison. It was definitely good to see some familiar faces. Harry Stewart, Johnny Thompson, and Keaton Kubeka all leaving this offseason in the transfer portal, but the three of them were really some of the only bright spots in this game for JMU. Although I don't think the score really tells the full story of this game. Halfway through the second quarter, we were tied at 10, and we really were not playing all that well, and then we scored 28 points within the span of 5 minutes. Yeah, so much so that we were able to take the starters out after the opening drive of the second half. Nonetheless, it was the most efficient game of Clyde Poole's career as a passer, not to mention he was great on the ground as well. And the whole offense was terrific. We scored 62 points. We didn't even get to meet our new freshman punter. Defensively, it was a little bit up and down, but the starters only allowed 10 points in the first half. We got a big pick 6 from Damani Maxson in the second quarter, which I think really gave us a lot of momentum that obviously we were able to capitalize on, as you can tell by the score. But we also have to keep in mind that James Madison is probably the worst team we've ever played against in this entire series so far. The Dukes only won 1 game a season ago, and yes, they made some nice additions through the transfer portal, but they are not particularly good. And I don't want to overreact from one game, especially when that one game is against one of the worst teams in the FBS, but it was still a good win. Going to be a lot more challenging today, though, with Duke, and then, of course, the Michigan matchup, both games being on the road, setting us up for what I believe will be a very tough in-conference slate. We did not go easy with the schedule this year, with the exception of the JMU game. We're going to do something a little bit different real quick with our red shirts. I played all 3 of our top freshman defensive linemen last week, Kyrie Brower, Afa G, and Greg Von Oelhoffen. Brower and Von Oelhoffen each had sacks. They each performed quite well, but I'm not really sure if either of them are going to be steady contributors throughout the year. Afa G, meanwhile, I think is too good to redshirt. I think he's going to be gone for the NFL in 3 years anyway. But what we're going to do with the other 2 guys is that Brower will play against Duke, and only Duke today. Von Oelhoffen will only play against Michigan. So that way we can try to figure out if either of them are going to be steady contributors for us as the season goes along, or if we need to redshirt them. Let's take a look at Duke now, who beat Texas in Week 0, but lost to Sam Houston last week, because that makes sense. The Texas score certainly popped my attention when I first saw it, but they definitely came back down to earth in their previous matchup. Nonetheless, it's a talented team, and I don't want to take these guys lightly. I don't want this to be a trap game going into the Michigan matchup. Aaron Noland, the former top Ohio State recruit, finally gets his chance to be a starter, and he's played really well through the first 2 games, was awesome in the win against Texas, and he's not the reason why they lost against Sam Houston. Xavier Terrell leads the backfield, and they've got some solid receivers led by the redshirt senior Spencer Jones. Defensively, I think they're talented as well. Musa Kane is a good player. Trajan Greco is a guy who we've played against in the past at the University of Missouri, so he's a guy we're already a little bit familiar with. Duke is an interesting team, though, throughout this series because they've had Malik Murphy as their starting quarterback over the last 3 years. Obviously, Murphy's been really good. We drafted him in the Broncos franchise in the 6th round. But Duke never won more than 5 games with him, and now it seems like they're starting to win with Aaron Noland, which is fascinating. But nonetheless, it's going to be a fun matchup as we will start on offense. 62 points for Clyde Poole and company a week ago. Granted, the backups played most of the second half, but still. 3rd down and 5 for the Jayhawks. It's the true freshman running back, Nicholas Scotland-Williamson, in motion. Poole scrambles, has space to the right side, and there he goes. Clyde Poole down the field. Spin move! Brings it past the 40 for a gain of 36. What a run by Clyde Poole, showing off the wheels as Kansas now has it inside the 25. Offense looking good early. Poole under pressure, looking for the end zone with a dot! Cornell Teamer is in with the score. The one area I really want to see Clyde Poole improve upon is the deep ball. That's been an issue for him over the last 2 years, and he put that one on a dime. Nice grab by Teamer, who scored twice a week ago against JMU. As we now take a look at the defense, who I thought had its ups and downs in the first half last week before most of the older upperclassmen didn't play the rest of the way. Nolan keeps it himself on the option, tripped up, outruns Marcus Ashe, and gets the first down. Mono Okeji has to make the tackle there, and then Marcus Ashe completely misreads the tackle angle. He's got to bring down the quarterback as well. Past the 50, Xavier Terrell up the middle, takes a big shot from Marcus Ashe, but not before getting the first down, as it's now a 3rd and 7 halfway through the first quarter. Nolan, the southpaw, looks to throw it under pressure, and he is sacked. Dakaius Brinkley brings him down. He had a sack last week. That's his 2nd of the season, and the 30th of his career. Duke at the 33-yard line would decide to punt it. They didn't trust their kicker from 50. Kansas back with it. 3rd and 11. Clyde Poole is brought down by Kobe Smith, amongst others. And we finally will get to meet our new punter for the first time this year. This is Ofisa Sammy from Southfield, Michigan, the true freshman, as it will be fair caught at the 47-yard line by Marvelous Abunda. So Duke will get it back with good field position starting past the 50. Their last drive was pretty solid up until the sack by Dakaius Brinkley. As on first down, Aaron Oland looks to throw it. Under a little bit of pressure, looking downfield, it's tipped and incomplete. Somebody's got to catch that. Taylor Davis had it right in his mitts. Davis had 5 picks a year ago. He's got to come down with that. Nolan wants it all on 2nd down. He's got Jones. 47 yards to the crib. Spencer Jones, the redshirt senior, leaves Quantavius Landers in the dust. That was the weakness with our defense last year. Too many big plays, particularly in man coverage. We've become more of a zone-oriented team. I run man once, and that happens. As Poole is sacked again on 2nd down, it's Preston Watson who brings him down. And that'll make it a 3rd and 10. Duke pass rush looking good early. As Poole tries to thread the needle, it's incomplete for Rajon Jones, and Kansas will have to punt it again. Duke gets it back. Slow start for the Blue Devils, but they're picking things up. 2nd and 9. Nolan floats it up, and it's caught by Derek Parker Bragg for a gain of 23. Talk about threading the needle. What a dime. Duke goes hurry up to the line. First down at around the 39-yard line. Nolan hands it off for Terrell, and he's going backwards. It's Santiago Herrera, the redshirt freshman, who I feel like really made strides this offseason, and I'm excited to see what his role will be on this defense. 2nd and 11. Terrell gets around 6 or 7, wrapped up by Mo Nwokeji. That'll wrap up the first quarter. We've got a good one here in Durham, knotted up at 7. The Jayhawks started this game off quickly with an early touchdown, followed by a big 3rd down sack by Dakaius Brinkley, but Duke's been playing a lot better since then, and overall their offenses look pretty solid, averaging around 10 yards per play. To start the second quarter, we're looking at a 3rd down and 4. Terrell in motion. Aaron Nolan looks to throw it, goes short, wide open. That one is caught for a first down. Quick start for Spencer Jones, who had the touchdown earlier, and Duke now has it in the red zone. 2nd and 1 for the Blue Devils at around the 13. Nolan looks to throw it under pressure, and he is brought down all the way at the 25. Dakaius Brinkley, his 2nd of the ball game. The senior's playing some really good football to open up this season, as it is now a 3rd and 13. Nolan, no time, sacked again! Dakaius Brinkley, 3 sacks in the first half. He's got 2 on back-to-back plays, and Duke, who is in the red zone on 2nd down, would punt it on 4th down. What a start to this game for Brinkley, as it's 3rd and 7, up the middle. There's Amani Law with the first down. Kansas trying to get something going on offense after back-to-back 3 and outs. As on 3rd and 1, Nicholas Scotland-Williams, and the true freshman, weaving through defenders, and he gets the first down. This young man is someone who I think has a lot of upside, and I'm really excited to see what he'll be able to progress to with our team. As Poole calls for an audible, I don't think Cornell Teamer got it in the slot. Poole's going to look deep for Teamer anyway, and it is broken up, incomplete. And Kansas on 4th and 6 will elect to go for it. It would be a 53-yard field goal for Escalante. I think that's a little bit long. Poole, under a ton of pressure, throws it away. Not often do you throw it away on 4th down, but it was either that or take a sack and lose an additional 15 yards. So the gutsy decision backfires. Duke gets it back. The offensive struggles for the Jayhawks continue as here's Xavier Terrell. Breaks the tackle from Jean-Pierre and is wrapped up by Brandon Hines. Now looking at a big 3rd down here for the Blue Devils as Noland is sacked again. Seth Jennings brings him down and he's joined on the play by Roddy Orr. Duke has consistently gotten to around, say, the 30-yard line, but once they get near the red zone, their offense seems to fold. 3rd down here for Kansas. Clyde Poole under pressure. No one's home. Throws it away. The Duke pass rush has been really solid, and that's 4 consecutive scoreless drives for Kansas, who scored on every drive a week ago against JMU. Duke now with a little over a minute left in the first half. 3rd down. Noland will throw it away. I definitely did not expect this to be a defensive battle. Duke has scored nearly 40 points in each of the last 2 weeks, and we know how good this offense is. Poole up the middle. He's got his man. It's Ty Lord who gets the first down for Kansas. The Jayhawks moving as quickly as they can. 2nd and 6. Cornell Teamer to the outside. Duke was not expecting a run as he brings it to the 41-yard line. The Jayhawks have 24 seconds and 2 timeouts to their disposal. Here's Tolbert up the middle on 3rd and 3. Does not get the first down, but he's close. Kansas is going to call a timeout. They could go for the field goal, but they're going to go for it. It'd be around a 50-yarder as Cornell Teamer has it up the middle with space to the left side. Cornell Teamer is gone! Touchdown, Kansas! But there's one problem. Holding on the offense. The left tackle, Nicholas Perkins. 4th and 11 at the 43. We're still going to go for it. There's 13 seconds left in the half. I don't think Duke's going to be able to do anything on offense, so we might as well. Up the middle, it's Amani Law! Probably shouldn't have gone sideways. That wasted some time. But we got the first down, which is the important thing. And now with 7 seconds, we've got to figure out how to manage this smartly as Poole will take a shot for the end zone. Boink! In the air, and it's incomplete. There's 1 second left. That was a close call. And we're just going to bring out the field goal unit. 40-yarder from the right hash for Escalante. This is historically where he has struggled, but his kick is right down the middle. Anthony Escalante from 40 puts Kansas ahead. Our first points since early in the first quarter, and that'll make it 10-7 going into the break. Certainly not the first half we would have hoped for, only up by 3. Defensively, we've been pretty good, especially around the red zone. Duke has been able to move the ball, but they haven't been able to score. Aaron Noland has taken some bad 3rd down sacks. Dakias Brinkley has 3, while our offense just hasn't really moved the ball that well, with the exception of the opening drive. Nonetheless, we are winning at the very least, but I need some more efficiency through the passing game. Clyde Poole's just 9 of 17. The run game has been non-existent, really. Clyde Poole's had a couple nice runs. Cornell Teamer's had a pretty good game. But otherwise, the other backs have all been pretty quiet. So hopefully the offense can pick it up here in the second half, because this is not the Kansas offense that we know from last year, and certainly not the Kansas offense we saw a week ago score 62 points against JMU. So we'll see what we can do in the second half. The Blue Devils do start with possession of the ball. And again, their offense, I feel like, moved it well. It just seemed like once they got into field goal range, they faltered, they took sacks, and, well, they only ended up with 7 points. So a big opening drive here for Duke, as it is a 2nd and 10 for Aaron Noland and company. Noland looks to throw it. It's a screen. He'll get rid of it quickly. It's Spencer Jones with blocks. Bounces away from the defender, gets the first down, wrapped up by Mo Nwokeji. And we've got to take Jean-Pierre out of the game. He does not look good, and it's not performance, but medical. 2nd down, looks like an RPO. That ball is out. It's a fumble, and it's scooped up by the Jayhawks. Zach Stokes with the recovery, and they're going to credit the force to Santiago Herrera. It was an RPO for Spencer Jones, and I'm wondering if that's really a fumble. I don't know if he made a football move or if that was just a drop. But as we look at the replay, that ball never actually hit the ground. So regardless, it would be Kansas' ball. It's a matter of if he took enough steps for that to be a fumble or if it's a tipped interception. So they're going to call it a fumble. It doesn't really matter because we get the ball back anyway. Play action on first down. Poole with a strike for Ty Lord, who's been active through the air. 5 catches, 34 yards, but has been quiet as a runner. Poole looking deep. That one is caught. Rajon Jones breaks a tackle, and he's in for a touchdown. Rajon Jones, the sophomore from Washington, D.C., is in for a score, and Kansas is able to quickly respond off the turnover. That's how you do it. Our first touchdown since early in the game on the opening drive. We needed that one badly. It was good seeing Clyde Poole make some big throws there, and Rajon Jones making a nice play after the tackle. Jones' usage hasn't been much bigger than last year, but he looks better out there. He looks bigger. He looks stronger. I feel like he really made some big improvements this offseason as Duke has it back on second down. Xavier Terrell breaks the tackle and is wrapped up by Davis. He was able to get by the true freshman defensive end, Alpha G. The 5-star has not been all that impressive for us so far. On second down, short throw is caught, and Terrell is going backwards. It'll be a loss at 2. Noland was under a lot of pressure. And now we are looking at a 3rd and 11 here for the Blue Devils. Air Noland looks to throw it. It's a screen. Terrell has it, and he will break off the initial tackle, but is wrapped up by the 5-star freshman, Alpha G. There's the play we were waiting for. And so Duke will have to punt it away. Their offense has gotten nothing going here in the second half with the turnover. And now this, as the punt will be muffed and quickly scooped up by the redshirt freshman, Alfonso Rugamba. That could have been bad news. As Kansas gets it back, a little over a minute left in the third quarter. Here's Teamer up the middle, jukes away from the defender. Big run for Cornell Teamer. 9 carries, 69 yards. Nice, and of course, the receiving touchdown back in the opening frame. On first down, here's Ty Lord to the outside. Has some blocks. Lord gets a big one late, and he gets it to the 10. That run for Ty Lord is going to be a gain of around 22 yards. That's more rushing yards than he's gotten through the entire rest of the season combined so far. 1st and 10, Tolbert lowers the shoulder. He's in for a score. Big Jazir Tolbert is in for a touchdown. Kansas playing really well offensively here in the third quarter. Noticeable difference from the first half to now. And I think much like last week, the play that gave us momentum was the turnover. Last week it was the pick six by Damani Maxson. Today it was the fumble forced by Santiago Herrera and recovered by Zach Stokes. So Duke is now down by 3 possessions, and it's going to get even worse. Jalen Todd with the interception. He had one last week and gets another one today. Kansas with another turnover. The Jayhawks have been dominant here in this third quarter as Noland throws the first interception of his career. Kansas back with it, 17 left in the quarter. Poole steps up in the pocket, breaks the tackle, and there he goes. Clyde Poole is wrapped up past the 30, and that'll wrap up a very impressive third quarter for the Kansas Jayhawks, leading this game 24-7. We got the big turnover off the fumble, and the offense has responded very nicely. I think the interesting thing about this game is we haven't had Clyde Poole run very often. Only 4 carries today, and 2 of them are sacks. He has not been scrambling much. 2nd and 8, Poole looking short. That was not the play. It's a loss of 7 for Rajon Jones. That might knock us out of field goal range. 3rd and 15, play action. Poole on the run, goes short. It is Ty Lord, and he gets around 6 or 7, so that'll bring out the field goal team. It'll be a 41-yarder again from the right hash. Escalante made one here from 40 in the first half. His kick is up, and it is a beaut. Anthony Escalante 2 for 2 today as it's 27-7, a 3-score lead. I mean, it was anyway, but adding to it, we're now at a 20-point deficit. Noland on first down up the middle. That one is caught. I'm not going to put the backups in yet. There's still time. We're still early enough in the fourth quarter, but Duke's got to get it together. They have struggled offensively here in the second half. Noland is shoved to the ground by Seth Jennings, who's had a very productive day. I've been waiting for Jennings to make the leap into stardom. Only had 7.5 sacks over his first 2 seasons. He had just 3 last year, but he's looked good this year. He had a sack last week, now a sack and a half today, and he is not done. Jennings is there again along with Roddy Orr. Jennings has now matched his sack total from last year. in just 2 weeks, as it's a 3rd down and 25 for the Blue Devils. We'll see what they have in store here, looking to pull a rabbit out of their hat. Noland, under pressure, launches it deep down the field, and it is caught by the defense. Another turnover. It's Quantavius Landers with the interception. Nothing is going right for the Duke offense. It has been a disaster of a second half for the Blue Devils. Kansas back with it, 6.5 to go. Up the middle, Nicholas Scotland Williamson fumbles it, but it's quickly scooped up. A nice recovery there along the offensive line by Nicholas Perkins. That could have been bad news as we take a look at that one again. I don't think that was a fumble, and sure enough, they would end up reversing it. Not that it really would have mattered anyway. We picked it up. 3rd and 5. Poole looks to throw it. Hit as he throws, and that one is broken up, incomplete. And so Duke will get it back. Not with great field position, though. Good punt by the freshman Ofisa Sammy. Starters are still out there with under 5 to go. Noland here on 1st down. Boink! 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 Incomplete! Mo Nwokeji had a pick 6 right in his hands, but he cannot hang on. 3rd and 2. Noland under pressure, rolls out, nearly sacked by Jennings. As he goes short, it's only a gain of maybe a yard, if that. Hauled in by Vance Bolliard, the tight end, and Duke would decide to punt the ball. They're waving the white flag, and we're going to bring in some of the backups. This is the true freshman, Carl Willingham. His first career pass is caught by fellow freshman Rasheem Diggs. I wanted to get Willingham in the game last week. We couldn't, but we do today as Jazir Tolbert gets the 1st down. I think of the quarterbacks in the QB room, Willingham is the most long-term upside. 6'5", 221, rocket arm. He can really run. As that one is tipped and intercepted. The first turnover of the year by the Kansas offense, and Carl Willingham's first collegiate drive ends with a pick. Musa Kane, the senior corner and NFL draft prospect, comes down with the interception as the Blue Devils get it back. Noland hit as he throws, and he's picked again. 3rd time's the charm. Viliami Manupuna with the interception. That is 4 Duke turnovers in the second half for those counting at home, and that will do it. 27-7, a lower scoring game than most would have expected, but a solid win nonetheless for the Jayhawks, who improved to a record of 2-0. We did not overlook this matchup going into the Week 3 game against Michigan. The offense wasn't great. Running the ball was up and down. Clyde Poole was solid, had a beautiful throw there to Teamer, but otherwise I wouldn't say he was great. The defense, though, was terrific, only allowing the 1 touchdown to Jones, 4 turnovers in the second half, and it was the fumble forced by Herrera, who I thought had a really good game, recovered by Zach Stokes. That was the play that kind of flipped the momentum, and we were able to capitalize, outscoring them 17-0 in the second half. Let's take a look at the numbers. We'll start with the Jayhawks. Clyde Poole was solid, 62% for the air, 2 touchdowns. Carl Willingham, of course, hit the interception. He was a freshman playing in his first game. I'm not really going to hold it against him. On the ground, Cornell Teamer, 12 for 86. Another strong game for the sophomore, who's gotten off to a great start this year. Poole, only 6 carries, quite low for him. Through the air, Ty Lord was busy, 6 catches, 40 yards. Jones with the touchdown. Amani Law was pretty quiet, as was Isaiah Lamora, though. The offensive line started slow, but they were definitely a lot better in the second half. And then the defense was absolutely terrific in this game. Again, 4 turnovers here. The pass rush was phenomenal. Seth Jennings and Nakias Brinkley, I've been waiting for them to be more consistent, and the 2 of them today combined for 5 sacks. I also want to highlight Roddy Orr. He's been very good as a transfer so far, and then Santiago Herrera. As I mentioned, I thought he had a really good game, and I'm going to continue to try to get him on the field more. Got to shout out the secondary. They were terrific, including the 3 interceptions by Landers, Manupuna, and Todd. And the special teams was good as well. Just not a very good second half for Aaron Noland. I thought he showed some good things in the first half. Wasn't really his fault that he had no time to throw it. I mean, Seth Jennings and Nakias Brinkley took over the game. They both looked like NFL players, and I suspect they will both be in the NFL this time next year. I thought defensively Duke actually held up pretty well, though. Only allowing 27 points against our offense is a win. They definitely did not lose because of their defense. They lost because their offense could not do anything in the second half. We've got some fun games on the schedule here in week 2. I'm fascinated to see how teams in our conference perform, such as Arizona State and Florida State, who both have big games. But before that, we're going to talk a little bit about recruiting. Some of these battles are not overly intense, so we're not going to spend that much time on it. But next episode will be the recruiting special, and I'm excited to dive a little bit deeper into many of these guys' stories and who they are as players. We have one guy who's narrowed his list down to 5. That's Marvin Root. We'll talk about him in a little bit. But first, we're going to take Eric Jamison off the board. I really like him. 6'4", he can really run. But Alabama's putting a lot of points into him. I don't think we can really catch up. Pat Nielsen has a lot of interest from Colorado, Kansas State, and Boise State. He's really undersized, and I think that's going to limit his upside. Kevin Hodges is bigger, and I think he's better. Dalton Stokes has locked us out. That's unfortunate. We could have had a fun storyline with Kajai Stokes of the Warriors series, but I guess that won't end up happening. I did think about taking off Marvin Root since we're currently in 5th, and that's not really a great spot to be, but we're going to keep him on for now, and we're going to add 3 new players. Guard B.J. MacArthur, edge rusher Major Westerman, and cornerback Emeka Ihedebo. So let's take a look at these new players. We'll start with MacArthur. I want to add more offensive line depth on the board. We're not going after too many right now, and he looks pretty intriguing. As for Major Westerman, he's from Eldridge, Iowa, the exact same town that Kyrie Brower is, who we recruited last year. And then Emeka Ihedebo is a gem. I like his skill set as a slot guy, definitely a guy who I want to prioritize. Even as a 3-star, I think he could end up being a diamond in the rough. Now we're going to have to figure out how we're going to use some of these recruiting hours, and it's really a matter of being smart. Which battles are more intense than others? For example, a guy like Jamison Michaels, his is moving slower, so why not put those points on a guy like Drew Page, who has 5 or 6 teams going really hard after him? Elijah Parrish doesn't have a ton of interest, but I'm going to go hard on him because I really want him. I think he's a total stud. The other 5 stars, there is a lot of interest with them. David Ibarra and Frederick Denbo. So we're going to make sure to put a lot of points into those guys. Marvin Root, we're going to put 50 into. I figure it's worth a shot. It's still close enough to where I think we have a chance of coming back, even though I don't like being in 5th once we're into the top 5. But I think we're early enough into the season to where we can afford to take the risk. Otherwise, nothing else too notable here for recruiting in week 2. I think it's really going to start to get interesting next week because that's when we're going to see more guys narrowing their list down to 5, and that's where things are really going to be heating up. So let's simulate into week 3. Let's take a look at some changes in terms of recruiting, and sure enough, we do have a handful of players who narrow their list down to 5, so that means we're going to have to start to accelerate things with these guys. Unfortunately, Emeka Ihedebo is down to 8, and we are not one of them. That sucks. I really wanted him, but I guess not. So Page were in 3rd. Ibarra were in 1st. Lane Oregon were in 3rd. So those are the 3 who we're really going to focus on this week. With Ihedebo off the board, we're going to replace him with Tony Fields, another slot corner, who has a few scholarships, but I like the skill set, and he also ends up being a gem. I'm going to put a lot of points into him just so we don't make the same mistake that we did with Ihedebo. As for Marvin Root, I put 50 into him, and look how much Tulane is doing. No chance. It's not going to happen. We're going to take him off the board. I want to put more athletes on the board who possibly can play multiple positions, so we're going to take a look at Tyler Johnson. I think he's listed as an offensive lineman right now, but maybe he can play defensively. He looks like a freak. He's a gem, which doesn't really surprise me with those ratings. So again, even though he's a 3-star, I really like his skill set. Let's take a look now at the 3 guys who are down to 5. That means we can start scheduling visits. Our next home game is week 4 against Utah, and I don't see any reason to wait. Why not have them visit now? Their recruitments will probably be done by the time we get to our next home game, week 7 against UCF. So we're going to have all these guys visit the campus now. Running back Drew Page, defensive tackle David Ibarra, and cornerback Lane Oregon. 3 of the better players on the board, especially Ibarra, who's the number 2 prospect in the entire country. We're going to put a little less points into Page and Oregon this week since we just use a lot for the visit, but not David Ibarra. I don't want to risk it with him. I really want to make sure that we end up landing him. Otherwise, this is how we're going to use the points here for week 3. And again, I'm excited to dive deeper into these guys as prospects in the next episode. That way, once we go through recruiting throughout the year, we're going to have more of the connection with many of these players, learning their stories, learning their skill sets, and figuring out the likelihood of not only them committing here, but also what their roles could look like next year and beyond. As I simulated the week, we see that Takayas Brinkley not only wins the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Week, but he wins the National Defensive Player of the Week. Very well deserved with his 3 sacks, him and Seth Jennings and Roddy Orr all wrecking havoc. Let's take a look at some scores across the rest of the nation. We'll start with Texas A&M and Arizona State. the only top 25 matchup this week. Texas A&M looking to bounce back after a disappointing season last year. And sure enough, they're going to start off 3-0, defeating the Sun Devils 20-7 in a low-scoring matchup. Both of these teams are very fascinating because Arizona State was bad the first couple seasons of the series, made the conference championship last year on the backs of their playmaking defense, who forced more turnovers than just about anybody. But the offense was inconsistent last year, and in this game, they only allowed 20 points. The defense did their part, but the offense did not. Certainly need more on the offensive side of the ball for A&M, but they only allowed 7. It's hard to be too upset with that. Utah heads to NC State facing off against the Wolfpack. Utah is a team who I think is a sleeper right now in the Big 12, led by this guy, Isaac Wilson, the 90 overall quarterback, one of the higher-rated players at the position in the country, and of course, the younger brother of the MILF hunter himself, Zach Wilson. We're going to get to play against Utah in just a couple of weeks, our first Big 12 matchup of the year. That's going to be a big game. I'm very curious to see how we stack up, but I'm curious to see if Utah is the real deal because I think they're going to be one of our biggest threats in the conference this year. Isaac Wilson with a strong performance. Mike Mitchell on the ground played pretty well. And their receivers, they had 300-yarders today. Number 1 Oklahoma facing off against Southern Methodist. The Sooners catapulted all the way up to number 1 after their win against Miami a week ago. And they're going to stay at number 1. They win this game, but not convincingly. And as I said after the Miami win, I was impressed. It was a good game from Oklahoma. But I'm not buying it. I don't think this team's going to stay at the top. Jake Wigfield's a 79 overall who's just been developing on this team and just happens to be the best guy in the room. As for SMU, I really like their quarterback, 84 overall freshman, Kane Mama. Fire name. I think it's only a matter of time until he really turns into a great player, but does not get the win today. After losing to Purdue a week ago, the defending champs look to bounce back here against Indiana, and sure enough, they would. Not. Indiana would get the upset here over Notre Dame, led by a strong performance from junior quarterback Tyler Cherry. Is it time to panic in South Bend? 35-31, the Irish only scored 3 points in the second half en route to losing this game. Tyler Cherry played really well. As for Notre Dame, Jay Pitts had some good and some bad. He threw for 4 touchdowns in the first half, but he also turned the ball over twice, and so far, he hasn't been great this year. We talked about him as a potential number 1 overall pick candidate going into the year. It was play like piss for Pitts, but instead his team is playing like piss, and his draft stock is certainly taking a hit. As for the team Notre Dame beat in the national championship, Maryland, facing off against one of the new Big 12 teams, the Arkansas Razorbacks. This ended up being a pretty exciting game, but the Terps would get the win. The replacement at quarterback for MJ Morris, Christian Martin, has been quite impressive so far. 24-21, the Terps with the win. I like Arkansas's quarterback a lot. Former 5-star Malik Page finally getting the chance to start. I'm excited to play against them later this season. And look who led them in receiving. Sheldon Brink, a name who we should know, the former Kansas Jayhawk, who went up 14 rating points last offseason for Arkansas. I always knew the upside was in Brink when we recruited him, and I'm happy to see him producing. But at the same time, we could really use him with the Mario Maddox injury. Let's head over to the blue turf. The Florida State Seminoles lost their first game of the year last week. Luke Cromenhoek, in his first game in over a year, looked really rusty. Today, he also looked rusty, but it seemed like he was making some progress, getting better, as the Seminoles win their first game of the year on the road here against Boise State, 27-17. We get to see Florida State later this year. Both of the new Big 12 teams are going to be facing off against us this year. Walker White, the former Auburn transfer, is now the new quarterback at Boise State. As for Cromenhoek, only completed 54% of his passes, but he did keep the ball out of harm's way, and he led the Seminoles in rushing. Certainly not as chaotic of a week as we got last week, but, I mean, last week was nuts, so it's kind of hard to top that. Miami scored 82 points. Goddamn, Brock Glenn threw 8 touchdowns. That is a lot. Otherwise, Mississippi State beats Minnesota. Oregon with their first win of the year. Clemson wins their first game of the season. In the Big 12, Iowa beats Iowa State. Of course, we had Cincinnati and Louisville, the two rivals. The Bearcats win that game. Kansas State lost to Georgia Southern. Yikes! The Wildcats are now 0-2 this year. Now, I will say, USC lost to Georgia Southern early last year and made the playoffs, but still, that is hilarious. It appears Kansas State might not be too good, which I'm trying not to laugh, but it is a little bit funny. I thought last year was the season they were going to get a lot worse, as I mentioned in the last episode, but I guess it's going to be this year instead. Well, that's what you get for beating us last year. As for the rest of the country, some of the games we did not go over. Virginia beats Fresno State. Missouri loses to San Diego State. Rough day in the office for both of our rivals. The Tigers with a new 5-star freshman quarterback who won the job, Colin Provo, who lost his first start to a Mountain West team, although they did score 38 points. It wasn't really his fault. Otherwise, nothing else too notable. Pretty quiet week, at least in comparison to week 1. And because of that, there's not going to be too much movement in the rankings. We started this week as the number 4 team, and we will leave it as number 4 going into the matchup against Michigan. The top 7 all stayed the same. Tennessee and Miami just happened to flip. Miami went down after scoring 82. How does that happen? We do have a few new teams at the bottom, Colorado, UCF, and Pitt. As for your players of the week, we already know Dekias Brinkley won it defensively, and then no surprise, Brock Glenn threw 8 touchdowns against FCS West. Brinkley obviously wins in the Big 12 along with House Hengy of TCU. Gonna have to figure out how to say that name. Look at the Heisman list. An entire group of new players. Sam Onatulu, I don't know why he wasn't on the list to begin with, is now number 1. That makes sense. I could certainly see him winning it, but otherwise a lot of surprises with Jake Wakefield, Jerron Tibbs of Purdue, Roberto Ruiz of TCU, and Christian Martin, the Maryland quarterback. I'd be very surprised if any of those guys other than Sam finished the year in the Heisman race, but you never know. As that brings us into week 3. We're headed to the big house to face off against Michigan. So let's look at the Wolverines, who have now been stewing on their loss against Buffalo for 2 weeks. They start conference play after this, and their rivalry week game is against Arizona State. That's random. Ohio State is ducking them for a second year in a row. Michigan beat them in the playoffs back in year 2, and Ohio State's like, no, never again. I think the fact that Michigan's just coming off their bye week really hurts us because they've gotten 2 weeks now to be upset about this Buffalo game and are going to take it out on us, I feel like. Their offense scored 28 points, but make no secret, their offense was abysmal against Buffalo. CJ Carr threw 4 interceptions, and they could not run the ball with the greatest offensive line ever assembled against a MAC team. One of the reasons why I wanted to schedule Michigan, along with our prior playoff history, is James Livingston, who entered the transfer portal this offseason. He decided to go to Michigan, and it was ironic because he was really good for us last year. He didn't allow a single sack in the regular season. And then he let up 4 in the playoff game against Michigan. He was horrible. And he jumped ships to Michigan through the portal. If you can't beat him, join him. Now, he's not the only really good offensive lineman on this team. They're 91 overall left tackle, yet he's their backup. They have arguably the 2 best tackle prospects in the country with Blake Frazier and Gage Robinson. Obviously, James Livingston at left guard is really good. Coleman Vivian at center, I think, is the best offensive lineman in the country. And then at right guard, they have an 89, who's the quote-unquote weak link. They have mid-80s guys as their 3rd and 4th stringers. That's ridiculous. As for the backfield, CJ Carr, the transfer from Notre Dame, won the job over former Kansas Jayhawk Isaiah Marshall. And then, of course, they grabbed Darrell Robinson out of the portal from UConn to replace Darius Taylor. Robinson, I thought, was going to actually leave for the NFL last year, decides to stay in school, goes up to Michigan, and I think he's a clear preseason Heisman candidate with this offensive line, but the Buffalo game is obviously not a good look. Michigan defensively is very strong as well. They've got a lot of good players here, but they lost a lot last offseason as well. The name to watch for me is going to be Cameron Brandt. He's like their 5th string defensive lineman, but he took over the game in last year's playoff matchup against us. And as we go back to those playoff games, this matchup is a little different for us because it's personal. Season 1 in the national championship, we lost this game 20-13 in a heartbreaker that went down to the wire. That elite group of seniors, including Jalen Daniels and Devin Neal, have never gotten the chance to redeem themselves against Michigan. So as I look at the playoff loss that we suffered in the first round last year, it's a little bit different because the guys who lost this game, for the most part, will get to redeem themselves. Obviously, a few of the upperclassmen like Caleb Purdy are gone, but otherwise, all these guys who lost last year against Michigan will have the opportunity to come back to the big house where they lost the playoff game and get revenge. I think losing that playoff game is going to help us in this one for a variety of reasons. We're going to be used to the atmosphere. We're going to be used to the experience already. And I hope that the big game feel won't intimidate us now that we've already been there. It's a rainy one, which should make things interesting. Our previous matchups against Michigan have been slow defensive slugfest, and I think the fact that it's raining is probably going to contribute to that even more. We're going to run the ball a lot. We're going to need our backs to be good. Cornell Teamer, Ty Lord. We're going to be in some short yardage spots, so we're going to need Jazir Tolbert to play well, and both at the lines. We lost last year in the playoff game because the offensive line was really bad, and we didn't get enough from the defensive line. We need to play much better at the line of scrimmage to have any chance. 3rd and inches, play action. Easy throw for Carr as he connects with the first down. It's Hogan Hansen, the junior tight end. Carr was the favorite to win the Notre Dame job last year, losing to Jay Pitts, and obviously Notre Dame got that one right. Carr up the middle. That one will go for a first down and a nice play after the catch. Good job there by Kendrick Bell, the senior, a local guy for us from Kansas City. Darrell Robinson bounces off the blocker, stumbles forward, and he already has more rushing yards than he did last week. Progress. I have a feeling Robinson's going to play really well. These guys are going to block their tails off after what happened against Buffalo as Hansen brings it inside the 10. And Michigan's offense is looking really good early. Not a good sign for us. 3rd and goal now at the 1. It's going to be a pitch. Kane Kunashik bounces off of blockers, and he's in for a touchdown. The redshirt sophomore, a guy who this Michigan program really likes. He's in for a score, and it's 7-0. I said we're going to need the backs to play well. We're going to need the offensive line to play well. But we're going to need Clyde Poole to play a strong game as well. Poole struggled last year in the playoff matchup, and granted, I don't think it was all his fault. He was banged up. He had no blocking. But he's going to have to perform as Cornell Teamer gets a good run to the outside. If the offensive line can play like that, I think we really could be in business. 2nd and 10. Ball is tipped up, and it's picked! First interception from Clyde Poole this season. It's Chad O'Donnell, the junior linebacker, with the interception. That one really wasn't Clyde's fault, considering it was tipped. Was it a great throw? No. So we can't completely give him the pass there. But look at this. Michigan scores a touchdown. Michigan forces a turnover. Disastrous start for Kansas. And look at all the time Carr has to throw it. Finally, he's got an open man to the 15-yard line. It's a Marion Stewart. That was the worst pass rush effort I've ever seen. The secondary did what they could. They held their reps for 10 seconds. 1st and 10 now. We're going to send a blitz after that disaster as Robinson loses a yard. You bet we're going to send an extra man now after watching that horrible rep, as it's 3rd and 7, under 2 minutes to go in the quarter. Here is Carr under pressure on the screen. It's Darrell Robinson, who does not get the first down, wrapped up by Samuel and Pemba. Good end to the drive defensively, but that 3rd down play made me want to puke. That was not the pass rush production we got last week. Dakaius Brinkley and Seth Jennings are going to really need to perform today. Roddy Orr as well, as Calvin Moe, the freshman, makes the kick for the Wolverines, and the true freshman from St. Louis, another local guy for us, makes it 10-0. So we're already down big. We've got to get it together. Teamer to the outside, still on his feet, big run to the sophomore, Cornell Teamer, who gets 23. Now we've got a 3rd and inches. The offense is getting a little something here at the end of the first, as that one is caught inbounds by Ty Lord for a first down. That's Clyde Poole's first completion of the game. He is 1 for 3. And that'll wrap up the first quarter in Ann Arbor. Not a particularly good start for Kansas. We trailed 10-0, allowing the early touchdown, the turnover, and then the field goal. I will say I think the run game's been fine. Cornell Teamer's off to a really good start. We got to continue to really utilize him. As on first down, it's play action. Poole on the run as an open man. Isaiah Lamore down the field, wrapped up at the 20. Really nice drive here. Clyde does not look phased off of the turnover. Following play, rolls to the right, on the run. He's got Law. Amani Law breaking tackles, and for his first score of the year, and Kansas is back in this game. It's 10-7. We needed to respond. We could not let Michigan turn this game into a blowout. And we got a huge drive, couple of big plays from Teamer. Clyde Poole, 3 for 3, dynamic with his arm, dynamic with his legs. As on 3rd and 7, Michigan goes for the draw. Kansas does not see it coming at all. And Darrell Robinson gets the first down. He's been effective and efficient so far. 3rd and 10, Carr looks to throw it, backs up in the pocket, under pressure, wants it all, it's picked off. Taylor Davis with the interception. We were able to send a lot of pressure there. Seth Jennings was in the backfield. I think Roddy Orr was in the backfield. See what happens when you win the battle at the line of scrimmage. I don't think we've played great on the offensive and defensive lines today, but it's better than it was in the playoff game last year. Baby steps as Teamer loses 5 in a wildcat formation. Everyone and their mother knew he was going to keep it, so you got to block for him. On 3rd down, he's sacked in the end zone. It's a safety. On a screenplay, you definitely got to block. Cameron Brandt, who dominated in the playoff game last year, is in for the safety. It's a little bit ballsy to run a screenplay at the 6-yard line, but I wanted to take the risk. Get one of our guys the ball in space, and, well, the risk backfired because this offensive line has been buns today. 3rd and 7, Robinson gets by a defender, throws another one off of him, and gets the first down. What a play after the catch by Darrell Robinson. Michigan up by 5 off of the safety, looking to keep things moving. Robinson to the right side gets another first down. This offensive line has been as advertised. These guys are blocking their tails off as on 1st down. Look at all the space for Darrell Robinson. That gap was bigger than the last time the Jets have won a Super Bowl. You and I could have gotten 10 yards on that play. As Michigan now has it in the red zone, 1st and goal. There's a big loss. Kane Kunashik is going backwards. Mono Okeji brings him down. After a good 2nd down play, it's now 3rd and goal. Receiver in motion. Darrell Robinson gets it, and he is laid out. Santiago Herrera brings him down shy of the end zone. We talked about in the last game how much Herrera has progressed. He shows it there. And Michigan's only going to take the points at the 1-yard line. I certainly wouldn't have done that, but the kick is good for Calvin Moe. And the lead is up to 8. 15-7, still technically a 1-score game. As Kansas gets it back, 1.5 left in the first half. Poole to strike. An absolute beaut over the head of the defender for Ty Lord. 3rd and 1, Lord gets it back. What a play, though, by Cameron Brandt, launching the left guard, Carter Leversky, to the ground. Brandt has been even better than he was in the playoff game last year. Had the safety earlier, now that play. As Carr on 3rd and 8, up the middle, he's got Quincy Mangum, who brings it past the 50. The Wolverines used their last time out. They're going to have to be smart with how they manage this clock here as they try to get some plays out of bounds and potentially kick a field goal. On 1st down, that one is caught. Nice play after the catch and a big hit. But still a good play for Brady Prescorn. Well, look at the clock. There's 5 seconds left. They might have enough time for one more play. Carr for the end zone. Or just shy. It's broken up by Davis, and that'll do it for the first half. Michigan unable to score here to wrap up the second. They do lead at 15-7 going into the break. I expected this to be a low-scoring, grinded out defensive slugfest, and it has been that. We definitely need more from the offense, and it starts with the time of possession. We've had the ball for barely 5 minutes so far, if that. The run game needs to be more consistent. We had a couple big plays from Cornell Teamer, but otherwise we really have not run the ball very well. The passing game has been subpar. Clyde Poole I don't think has been bad, but he hasn't really had time to throw it. The play at the line of scrimmage is better than it was in last year's game, but it still has not been good. The offensive line needs to be better, and the defensive line needs to be better. As Teamer loses 3 to start the second half, and he is injured. Maybe the one guy we absolutely cannot afford to have out of the game right now, as it is a 2nd down. Here is Poole. He'll look short. It's caught by Ty Lord, who points at the defender, and he gets it past the 30. Lord has been the leading receiver in terms of receptions over the last 2 weeks. He's the go-to guy right now in the passing game. He's on 3rd down. Poole looks to run with it, and there's no room. This normally isn't the case against other teams, but Michigan's keeping a spy on him, and it's working. Wolverines back with it. Our offense had a 2-for-1 to end the first half, start the second half, and we didn't score. On third down, Carr is wrapped up. Roddy Orr with a sack in each of his first 3 games as a Jayhawk. The transfer from Iowa has been as good as advertised. What an addition he has been to the defense. Ty Lord with it to the outside with a big run past the 40. We're waiting for some big plays on the ground for Lord, and there's one. That can really get some momentum for this drive as it's a gain of 20. Second and inches. Poole is sacked once again by Cameron Brandt. He's got a sack and a half today as it's 3rd and 5. Lord up the middle gets nothing. I wanted to run it there to try to make it a 4th and manageable. We're still going to go for it anyway. It's not that I don't trust Escalante from this range, but we've got to get some big plays here. Up the middle, Amani Law hangs on for the first down. A gain of around 7 or 8, but one of the most important catches of the game to keep the drive going. 3rd and 4, funky formation. Tolbert running through defenders. Big run by Big Job as Jazir Tolbert gets the first down inside the 10. Poole calls for a switch at the line here on 2nd and goal. He will look to throw it. Under pressure, sacked again. The offensive line is not giving us enough. Lugard Edopayi brings him down, and it's now a 3rd and goal backed up at the 11. Poole rolls out to the right, on the run, looking for the end zone. It's caught. Good job by Rajon Jones to come back to the ball, and because of forward progress, they say he's down at the 1. So we're going to go for it. It's a 4th and very manageable. 4th and goal at the 1-yard line. Direct snap. Lord breaks the tackle, and he is in for a touchdown. Most guys tonight have not been able to break off the initial hit from Cameron Brandt, who won his rep at the line again. But Ty Lord shrugs him off, and we're a 2-point conversion away from tying it. We will go for 2 here. I think we're late enough in the game, and especially with the lack of scoring, we're going to need to do this now. Poole will hand it off for Cornell Teamer, and he does not get it. He was able to get a yard or so, but wrapped up by Cole Sullivan, who's also been dominant, like Cameron Brandt, the 2 of those guys taking over the game. 30 seconds left in the quarter. Carr is sacked on 2nd and 1. Zach Stokes brings him down. Michigan felt like they had a free play there. They could look down the field, but we have Zach Stokes coming in unblocked off the blitz. And that'll wrap up the 3rd quarter. A big touchdown drive. We don't get the 2-point conversion, but we bring the lead within 2. Still a lot of work to do, but with that big sack by Stokes, Michigan is now looking at a 3rd down and 11 to start the 4th. Biggest play of the game so far. Carr calls for an audible. He will look to throw it. It's going to be a screen here for Robinson. Gets some blocks and will not get the first down. Wrapped up by Mo Nwokeji. It's a gain of 10 for Darrell Robinson. Just shy of the yard to get. Kansas gets it back, only down by 2. 3rd and 7. Lord is wide open. Jukes away from the defender for the first down. He was not the initial read. We were looking for Cornell Teamer out wide. But with all that space, we'll take the easy throw instead. Another 3rd down now. 3rd and 9. That one is caught. Rajon Jones hauls in. Way to keep your hands on the football as the sophomore gets the first down. 3rd and 6 now, looking for another conversion. Play action. Poole has to get rid of it quick, and he throws out at the sack. So we're going to bring the field goal team out. It's a 47-yarder for Anthony Escalante. I trust him in this spot. Kick is up, right down the middle. Never a doubt for Escalante. He's improved so much since his freshman year. He would not have made that kick 2 years ago, but he splits the uprights. He's now 5 for 5 this year, and Kansas, for the first time today, takes the lead, 16-15. Still only a 1-possession game, though. Plenty of time for Michigan to do some damage. 7.5 minutes. On first down, Robinson is stuffed in the backfield. Damani Maxson reads the play immediately. Michigan already backed up with poor field position off of the bad kick return. We're now looking at a 3rd and 6 from the 14. Carr, it's a screen. Darrell Robinson breaks the tackle, but is laid out. Samuel Mpemba with the big hit, and Michigan has no choice but to punt it. First play of the drive for Kansas. Scotland Williamson going backwards. Runs around the defenders, has space, and there he goes! The true freshman, Nicholas Scotland Williamson to the house! 58-yard house call, and Kansas adds to the lead. Welcome to college football, young man. Nicholas Scotland Williamson with the best run of his young career so far and the biggest run for our team so far this season. That looked like it was going to be a loss of yardage, but one of the reasons why I really liked him coming out of high school is his big playability. This kid can run, especially for a guy his size, 5'10", 230. He can fly, and he shows off his impressive speed there, celebrating into the end zone. And now Michigan, who hasn't scored in the second half, needs a sense of urgency, down 8. Under pressure, it's intercepted! Jalen Todd picks it off. He's going to go right down. No funny business. Everything is going Kansas' way right now in the fourth quarter. C.J. Carr turns it over for a second time this afternoon, and the Jayhawks, up by 8, are in golden position to make it a 2-score lead. Just moments ago, we were losing, and now we're firmly in the driver's seat. 3rd and 5, just going to run it up the middle. Teamer does not get much of anything, and we're going to bring the field goal unit out. Escalante made one from 47 earlier. This one from 50. One of the biggest kicks of his career. He had a few 50-plus yarders last year as a sophomore to make it a 2-score lead and put Kansas up comfortably here at the Big House. One of the biggest kicks of this young man's life. Anthony Escalante, what do you got for me? From 50. Has the accuracy, and the distance is good! 50-yarder for Anthony Escalante. 26-15. Kansas adds to the lead. We've now outscored Michigan 19-0 in the second half, and the Wolverines, down by 11, are now all of a sudden hanging on for dear life. C.J. Carr on first down, looks to throw it under pressure from Jennings. He's got his man, a nice play after the catch. It is the talented senior Amarian Stewart with the first down. 3rd and 2, Carr looks to throw it, has time, and he will throw it away. Nobody was open. Good job by the coverage. Now looking at a 4th and 2, under 3 minutes to go. Tight end in motion. Wouldn't be surprised to see them run the ball here. And sure enough, they will. Darrell Robinson does not get it! Wrapped up on the play by Damani Maxson. He's had some big tackles down the stretch, and a few first downs ended for good. Nicholas Scotland Williamson with the huge touchdown earlier gets the first, and Michigan is going to start burning their timeouts. Scotland Williamson right back in the game. He gets it again with space. Another first down, and Michigan has to call another timeout. 1 first down away from ending this game and beating the boogeyman. Cornell Teamer has space to the outside, dives down. That'll do it! Kansas has defeated the Michigan Wolverines. 3rd time's the charm. Would I trade this win for either of those playoff wins? Yes, I undoubtedly would. But better late than never. This was not a pretty game by any stretch. The offense had their good moments and their bad moments, but this is how Michigan plays. It wasn't meant to be pretty, and especially when you factor in the weather, I was not expecting some high-scoring shootout. We struggled early in this game. The offensive line couldn't block in the first half. The defensive line really struggled, but at halftime we adjusted. We played so much better at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball in the second half. And you see what happened? We outscored them 19-0. So an impressive win here, even if it wasn't a pretty game by any stretch. To go into the Big House and beat Michigan, can never complain about that. It was an interesting game from Clyde Poole because I really don't think he was bad. What we did compared to the previous matchup against Michigan is we put less on his plate. We didn't need him to be Superman. We needed less big throws from him, and he rarely scrambled in the second half because Michigan had contained them the entire game. They had a linebacker as a spy out there every passing play, and their edge rushers are so fast, they're able to contain him as he's scrambling. So we couldn't run it with him at all, and because of that, we found other ways in the second half to get the offense going as our main game plan was halted. The efficiency was not great running the ball, but shout out Nicholas Scotland Williamson, who had a big fourth quarter with the huge touchdown. We didn't have a lot through the air because we didn't throw the ball that much. Clyde Poole didn't have time to throw it, so because of that, rather than drop back and pass it, we just focused on running the ball. The offensive line wasn't great, but I'll give them credit. They got better as the game went along. and they were respectable in the second half. We made improvements. Defensively, I can't believe I'm saying it, but we might have ourselves a really strong defense. We allowed 0 points in the second half for a second week in a row, and we did it without the big plays. We only had 2 sacks this week. We did have 2 interceptions. Jalen Todd now has 1 in each of the first 3 games this year. He's been balling. And we also might have ourselves a kicker. Anthony Escalante's been perfect this year, and he's had some tough kicks to make. As for Michigan, CJ Carr had some good throws, but he was pretty unimpressive. I wouldn't be surprised if Michigan makes a change at this position. They're 0-2. They need to change something. They ran the ball a lot better, though. Darrell Robinson was good, and they can definitely count on their ground game going forward. I think the Buffalo game was more a fluke than anything in terms of the run. James Livingston was phenomenal, which does not make me overly happy, but I got to give him his flowers. He played really well, as did the rest of the offensive line. And then defensively, Cameron Brandt was an animal. Sullivan was an animal as well. But we were able to contain everybody else in the second half, and we were able to get more from the ground game because of it. So an impressive win. Again, it was ugly. The offense did not play great. The defense started slow, but we found a way to go on the road in a hostile environment and win. Let's take a look at some other scores across the country of some fun games this week, including Alabama and Ohio State. We'll start with number 1 Oklahoma, though. They play against San Diego State, who just beat our rivals Missouri a week ago. And like the last game against SMU, this one was awfully close, a little bit too close for Oklahoma's liking. They found a way to win again. Taylor Tatum, the senior running back, playing really well this year. So the Sooners hold on to the number 1 spot. They're now 3-0. But this team does not pass the vibe test, the eye test, if you will. 27-24, your final here. Maybe Oklahoma's a little bit better than I've given them credit for, but they barely beat SMU, who, spoiler alert, lost really badly this week to a not-so-good team. And then they barely beat San Diego State, who isn't some incredible team either. So some red flags here with number 1 Oklahoma. We'll put it like that. Number 5 Alabama, number 6 Ohio State at the shoe. The Tide dominated early in this game. They led 17-0 at halftime, but then Alabama remembered it's a big game early in the year. They're not supposed to win those. They haven't ever in this series, and well, sure enough, Ohio State claws all the way back to win it, 25-24, outscoring Alabama 17-0 in the fourth quarter. It's wash, rinse, and repeat with Alabama. They lose their big games early in hilarious fashion. They play well in SEC play, make it to the conference championship, just to lose. Impressive comeback here for Ohio State. They climb up all the way to number 2 in the poll. Arkansas State heads to College Station facing off against Texas A&M. And the Red Wolves would get the upset here. Maybe Texas State isn't so good. That was one hell of a catch, by the way. It was 23-0 going into the fourth. A&M gave a fight late. But maybe their win against Arizona State isn't so good. Arizona State had a bad loss themselves this week, and we'll get to see the Sun Devils in a couple of weeks as well. Miles O'Neal was taken out of the game early. I don't know if he was injured or if he was benched. Marcel Reese was better than him, to his credit. Maryland against Virginia Tech. Huge matchup here. I'm really curious to see how Maryland looks. They're number 3, but I think that's really based on how they were last year, and I'm waiting to see them play against a good team like Virginia Tech. But sure enough, the Terps showed up. Christian Martin sent bombs away, including that one to the sophomore wideout Miles Steele. Really good game here, 41-38. Another impressive fourth quarter comeback as the Hokies outscore Maryland 19-0 in the fourth quarter. And the poll makers were so impressed that Virginia Tech moved up despite the loss. Christian Martin was ridiculous, though, throwing for 5 touchdowns. He was fantastic. I'm not really sure why Virginia Tech went up, though. I get they played well in the fourth, but they also struggled early in this game. Louisville headed to Georgia, facing off against the Bulldogs. It feels like it's raining everywhere this week, as Louisville would get the upset. And I'd like to introduce you to this sophomore receiver, Frederick Kirkland. I think in 2 years from now, he's going to be a first-round pick. This guy's a total stud. He was fantastic in this game, helping lead the Cardinals to the upset, 36-29 over now 24 Georgia. The redshirt sophomore quarterback, Yvonne St. Jules, the former 5-star, was really good, though. On the ground, 16 for 136 and a score. A very Clyde Poole-esque stat line, although maybe not so much today. Pierce Clarkson, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Kirkland, 4 for 88 and a score. 6'3", 212 pounds. I'm telling you, I think he's going to be really, really good. Clemson returns home, facing off against the Horned Frogs of TCU, who have looked good early in this year. Clemson still trying to avenge their Week 1 loss, and ultimately they would not do so today. I'd like to introduce you to TCU quarterback Haas Hengy, the senior who won the QB battle. TCU's got like 6 or 7 guys who are 80-plus at the quarterback position. Hengy won the job, and he has been fantastic. Clemson played well in the 4th, but it was not enough. Lenore Sellers did have a really good game, but the rest of the team let him down. Clemson lost a lot in the offseason. They lost their entire receiving core. Their defense has been a train wreck this year as Hengy throws for 4 scores in this one, helping lead TCU to the win. I'm buying stock on the Horned Frogs. I think they could be a threat in the Big 12. South Carolina heads down south, facing off against the U. I'm kind of waiting for South Carolina to put it all together. I really like their quarterback, junior Corin LaRoque, who threw for 4 touchdowns in this game, helping lead the Gamecocks to the win over Miami, 31-21. Brock Glenn struggled again now that he's playing against like an actual real team. You got to feel for Keon Hokulani. He's been the scheduled starter, and then they've replaced him with transfers 3 years in a row. As for South Carolina, as I mentioned, 4 scores for LaRoque. I think he's really talented, one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the country, super battle-tested. He's been a starter since day one as a true freshman. As we take a look at some other scores across the country, Oregon's bounced back nicely, 2-0 today, beating their rival Oregon State. Boise State is now ranked. Florida State wins their first game in the conference. Texas beats UTEP by 2. Nebraska's in the top 10. I feel like that's not going to last. Kansas State loses again, this time to Washington. And then Tennessee blows out Stanford. The Linsanity run Stanford had last year needs to be studied. They went 0-2 in Season 2. They won 10 games last year, and now they're 0-3 this year. Some bad losses in the Big 12. Houston loses to Georgia Southern as well. Tulsa blows out Oklahoma State 45-10. Yikes. Texas Tech, former member of the Big 12, loses bad to NC State 31-10. It was not a particularly good week for our conference. Well, I mean, we beat Michigan, but I guess not everybody is good like us, unfortunately, as we take a look at the rest of the scores. After our big win against Michigan on the road, we ended up moving down in the polls, which is pretty hard to believe, but everybody above us won. And Ohio State did the big comeback against Alabama, so I can kind of understand it. Now, we do have 2 teams in the top 4 playing each other this week, Ohio State versus Maryland. I'm fascinated to see how the Terps play because, again, they obviously lost a lot from their team last year, and I think their ranking is more so because of how good they were a season ago. If they win against Ohio State, my opinion will be changed, put it that way. Still don't know why Virginia Tech moved up. That doesn't really make sense. And then here are the rest of the rankings. As for the players of the week, I feel like we shouldn't be allowed to put guys who beat FCS opponents. But yeah, DJ Lagway is there. He was responsible for 8 touchdowns. And then Brady Pretzlaff wins it defensively. As for the Heisman watch, Sam Onatulu keeps his top spot. And he's got a receiver joining him at number 2. Redshirt senior Cooper Hutch? I don't know. Nonetheless, he might be their new slot guy who gets force-fed like Xavier Jordan and Jeremy Bernard in seasons past. So next episode, we will not play against Utah, but instead, we've got the recruiting special. I'm excited to dive deeper into the guys currently on our recruiting board and let you know what the strategy's looking like over the next couple of weeks. And then after that, we kick off conference play. We'll start at home with Utah. Then we've got Arizona State, which should be a fun matchup as well. Hope you guys are excited for that. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Peace out. Rock Chalk.